I think that kind of the overall morality factor for me is we try to instill it in our culture, and of course with today's society of legal and you know, human resource issues, if you will, that there are in the laws, you have to be a little cautious about it. But for me personally, I believe that morality, you know, why we're on this earth is really, in my opinion, the end game. I want to go to heaven. That's really where I'd like to be. I mean, this is what I'm doing for my company or companies that I own. There are days that you think that it's a very important piece of the overall plan, but it is so small in the overall objective of my life in trying to get to heaven. So I think that the term morality or any related subject, in what I do, I try to use ethics and morality in how we operate our business. And by doing that, you know, it's helping me kind of be a servant of God. But really, it's just that's the kind of person I want to be. And that's the kind of way I want our company to communicate how they operate and how their ethics are and their values. You want to absolutely respect individuals' independence, their values, whether that be ethics or race, religion, those kinds of things. But you know, I don't know. I just get the impression you can't be godlike. You can try to be a good ethical and moral individual as a leader, and you can try to communicate those values in which you have. And try to instill them in such a way that others will see the benefits of that. But unless they're a friend or something, there is a little bit of a fine line between bringing these, you know, ethical types of issues to the table in the workplace. So it's a very touchy subject. Related to conflict, I think one of the things, as I digress here a second, that is frustrating for maybe the new age, the kids, the generations today, is you have text messaging, you have cell phones, you have email, and oftentimes conflict is dealt in a kind of informal manner or impersonal. And I would encourage, you know, I would encourage universities, I also would encourage children growing up in today's digital age to try to deal with conflict one-on-one and face-to-face. So we try to deal with it in that manner. Oftentimes, even at our level, it can still get brought into an email while you're communicating and gathering information. So we really try to deal with it one-on-one, very directly, hopefully in a meeting, but at the very least in a telephone conversation, as opposed to electronic medium, which there's no, you know, emotion, or maybe there's over emotion. You don't really get the empathy out of the conversation on a text message that you would by doing it in person or on a phone call. So we try to deal with it head on. It is challenging because a lot of our staff are in different states. They're not even, you know, we're not so much caught up in today's world at 180 Networks as to where our people are located, because technology has enabled us to provide that. So typically when we'll have a situation where we have a conflict or we need to exercise conflict resolution, we will essentially try to just do fact-finding in kind of text messaging or emails back and forth, and then really reserve any comments or final decisions until we see those individuals in a setting one-on-one where we can follow up. We just think it's the most appropriate way to handle it. I like the idea. Fred Brown put a great program together here through the Hogan Entrepreneur Program, which I believe is the company he owns is Next IT, but he also did NextLab was a great example. And I think that a private institution like Gonzaga or a public university like WSU, I think the more and more partnerships that they can develop with entrepreneurs like Fred in his program. We've often thought at 180, are there, you know, can we utilize all of the bandwidth, the broadband internet, all of the fiber optic technology? Can we place, if you will, a little lab or testing facility at the university where we can educate students on our products and services, but also ask that they take their knowledge and services and try to meld them together. And who knows, maybe we'll come up with that next great product. And I think that if you're an entrepreneur with faith and exercising ethics, that you have a fiduciary responsibility to yourself and others to help mentor along and stimulate, you know, education. That education is just so key. So I think it's a responsibility of leadership to partner with universities to you know, bring that forth coming. One of the things that I try to do is be a really good listener. I have had so many supervisors over the years that will, essentially give you a job, describe what they want you to do, and your job is to go do it. We operate a little bit differently in that we operate with something we call the group development model. And in our companies, we have the core functional groups: marketing, human resources, finance and accounting, engineering, and there are many others. Rather than, I'm going to give you an example of marketing. Rather than me going to the marketing director and saying, we would like to launch a new branding of the 180 logo or our name, rather than me do that, which it's very possible that I could do that, I think today's new CEOs are realizing that I hired this marketing individual and his or her team because they specialize in this. So my idea of how I work with folks is I'll give them a specific challenge or task to say, I'd like to revisit our logo, I'd like to revisit our branding, and I'd like you folks to come up with a team concept of how we should roll it out. That could mean what are the costs associated, and and what are the dates the timelines that we'll be able to hit. Now, while I've digressed and I've told you a little bit about this model, I say that because that's how I choose to operate with empathy and with communication. I'm not a hammer down guy, and I think the days of the old hammer down, this is what we're going to do and this is where we're going, are done. People don't want to work in organizations where they're told what to do. People want careers where they can participate in the growth of a company. And by doing that, you'll grow the organization so much faster. And you're actually giving the people that you've hired and empowered and trust to come up with the answer. So it's a really good model. Interestingly enough, I'm leaving here today to go to, I have a single parent that works for us. This particular individual has 2 kids, and I'm leaving to go watch one of her kids' baseball games because, those are the kind, they really appreciate that stuff. I mean, when I show up to a baseball game, the kids get excited, but more so the parents are like, they feel like, that's the kind of place that I would like to work in. And I'm not doing it because I want them to feel that's the place I want. I'm doing it because I genuinely care about the employees. Doesn't take too much time out of my day. And the fact is, my kids are older and grown, so I like doing it. But I think the real reason, one thing people have to understand in my position is you need to do it for the right reason. Don't do it because you're expecting something in return from he or she. I'm doing it because I want to. And, just little things like that, empowering employees, participating, but there are very black and white lines of where you can participate in their personal lives. But participating and being supportive, I think, really open up, kind of any, if you will, lines of communication with employees and management style. They always say Rome wasn't built in a day, and my personal view is that I can only influence how I operate as a leader. And I would hope that my ethics or my morals and how I carry myself, as a man of God, if you will, and you can be a man of God and only go to church 10 days, 10 weekends a year. I can attest to that. My point is it starts with me. And we hope that by me sitting in an interviewing somebody that believes in those same kind of ideals, that we can get them to come to work for us. And they'll come to work not just for the money, but because they want to work in that environment. And then my hope is that the next time that person hires somebody, they'll communicate the same thing to the new employee. So it's kind of this perpetual process of, I'll end up hiring a management team, the middle manager will then hire other people, and those folks will hire other people. The point of this kind of tree concept, family tree, is that eventually those individuals then will go out into the world and they'll hopefully communicate, and operate as really, respected folks in their communities. So, you'd like to push a button, you'd like to eliminate race, you'd like to eliminate poverty, but it is a very, very long process, and I think what people need to start with is themselves.